Hola, hola amigos, estamos en Espacio Marcial, en el capítulo número 8, con otro invitado de lujo, que tengo el honor de presentarlo, que es el gran maestro de Savate, de boxeo francés, Nicolas Saignac. Thank you very much. Estamos nuevamente, bueno, con Juan, que es nuestro panelista y también amigo de Ciudad Chile. Juan.
Sí. Bueno, una gran conversación, una gran oportunidad también hoy día para que puedan los que no saben lo que es el Savate informarse con un practicante Savate de muy alto nivel. Va a ser un buen día.
Ahí se vemos, maestro.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. So my name is Nicolas to talk to all of you guys about Savate, and hopefully I can help you better understand what it is. I can tell you the reason why it's not more well known than it is, but I look forward to this conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Bueno, que está muy feliz de estar en esta conversación, que es una buena oportunidad para difundir el Savate, que no sabe por qué no es más conocido en el mundo, pero que agradece la oportunidad de estar aquí y poder conversar sobre eso.
La primera pregunta que yo quería hacerle al maestro Nicolás es, el Savate está principalmente difundido en Europa y en Estados Unidos. ¿Tiene representante en Latinoamérica?
His first question for you is, Savate is more known in Europe and the USA, but do you have any representative, or do you know someone that do it in Latin America?
You're right, it is definitely more developed in Europe than it is in the rest of the world. In the United States, it is known, but it's still very small. We don't have a strong federation. There are a few people in Latin America, but not very many. I think it's mostly Mexico. I know a few, people who can teach, but none in Chile. Brazil, I think, is a federation as well. And then I would say it's developed also on other continents, mostly in Africa, probably coming from the fact that there's a lot of people from African descent training in France and, bringing back to African continent. But in Latin America, unfortunately, it hasn't been well developed.
Bueno, dice que desafortunadamente en Latinoamérica no se ha desarrollado mucho, excepto al parecer en Brasil hay una federación y en México también. Sin embargo, nos comenta que en África está comenzando a ser popular, probablemente por los afrodescendientes que viven en Francia y después lo llevan de vuelta a África también, pero que desafortunadamente en Latinoamérica, hasta donde él sabe, probablemente Brasil y México, nada más.
Bueno, maestro, después de la pandemia, entonces vamos a hacer los esfuerzos para traerlo a Chile.
He said that after COVID things it's over, he was going to make an effort. So if we can have you in Chile,
that would be wonderful. There are a couple people that I know. One who came from the United States that you may know, Hector Solis.
Yeah.
And one of the people that he trained with, Frank Vasquez, who's from Mexico. Yes. I know they have some connection as well. So I was wondering if you knew.
Yes, yeah. Hector Solis has been here 2 or 3 times. So I went to 2 of his seminars. So and also Alejandro. So we know him. Dice que él conoce a Héctor Solís y a su alumno Vázquez, que es de México, y que él sabe que ellos tenían cierta relación con Chile. Y le contesté que sí, que había hecho seminario y que tanto tú como yo habíamos asistido.
Sí, compartimos con ellos. Sí, Juan.
Okay, so my first question is maybe you can explain for people that does not know what Savate is, give a brief introduction or brief history or whatever you want to say about the martial arts and sports side of the art.
Sure. So I think I'm going to start explaining what it is, and then I'll go back to the history and maybe talk a little bit about how it has evolved. So it is known as martial art that uses fists and feet. Okay, and the feet. So it's kickboxing sport where we can only use the shoes and the gloves to connect with. So there's no knees, no shin, no elbows. It's purely boxing techniques, okay, for the hands and protected with the gloves. And then the different part of the foot protected by a shoe.
Okay, let me translate that, please. Le pregunté si nos podía dar una breve introducción a lo que era el Savate para que nos informáramos tanto los que algo sabemos como la gente que no sabe exactamente de qué estamos hablando. Y es un estilo de kickboxing desarrollado en Francia, en el cual se puede conectar ya sea con los puños, con guantes, o con los pies que tienen zapatos, con nada más. Ahora va a continuar con la descripción. Please go ahead.
The history dates back, it was codified in the late 1800s. So it came, like the non-techniques were coming from all street fighting techniques put together into a self-defense system. Mm-hmm. And it developed throughout the 19th century, early in the 19th century. By the end of the 19th century, so 1877, I think the first code with the description of all the different techniques was mm-hmm. published.
Es un sistema de combate que se inició como una compilación de técnicas de defensa personal. Se desarrolló principalmente en los 1800 y en 1877 se publicó el primer compilado de técnicas de Savate. Please go.
So there's been several teachers that have helped to develop. One of the most important was called Charles Lecourt in the 1820s, 30s. He was the first one who decided to take the techniques, the hands techniques from English boxing mm-hmm. and put it together with the Savate kicks.
En 1820, 1830, Charles Lecourt sí, incluyó las técnicas de boxeo inglés al Savate. Okay, please go ahead.
And after this time, it has developed different style, developed in different places of France and Europe, such as Switzerland and Italy. And then it became, it grew all the way to become a sport demonstration at the Paris Olympics in 1924.
Mm-hmm. Y después de eso fue creciendo en distintos países de Europa también. Él menciona Suiza y Italia. Y después fue presentado en las Olimpiadas de Francia, me parece que dijo 1924. Okay.
Yeah, 1924. Very good. Sí. After this time, for whatever reason, the popularity decreased a lot. And there's not a lot of traces. People still thought, but it was not as popular. And it started again in the 1960s.
Después de 1924 se perdió un poco y estuvo más o menos desaparecido hasta los 60.
From the 1960s to this day, it has evolved with as a fighting art. Mm-hmm. So it used to be just one touch and stop. It became like a round system where people would compile and non-stop action with 5 rounds for each fight. Mm-hmm. 5 rounds of 2 minutes, roughly.
Entonces dice que desde los 60 ahora ha ido evolucionando, que en un principio era al punto, o sea, al contacto se paraba y evolucionó a ser un deporte de rounds, que tiene 5 rounds de 2 minutos.
And so it is now well practiced in Europe, and the level of competition is really, really high in Europe with particularly from countries coming from the East, so Croatia, Serbia, Russia. It's definitely has become more competitive, but it's still like really, I think Europe is the place where it's mostly practiced and where the level of competition is the highest.
Y dice que ha ido creciendo en Europa y que el nivel más alto está en Europa y se han ido sumando países como Croacia, como Serbia y como Rusia. Y que, repite, el nivel más alto está en Europa para la competición.
Ya. Entonces podríamos decir, para que la gente se vaya como interiorizando, el Savate solamente usa los pies y los puños. Es muy parecido a como el taekwondo porque no usan las canillas, en este caso con la canilla ni el rodillo.
Ni codo, ni nada más. Sí.
La pregunta que le quería hacer al maestro es, bueno, con nosotros, como yo entrené el Kundo, la gente no sabe que las patadas elegantes o estilizadas que en este caso que mostraba Bruce Lee era el concepto del Savate. ¿Qué nos podría decir él?
He asked the kicks that they use in Jeet Kune Do, some of them comes from Savate. So what could you talk about that relationship between Savate and Jeet Kune Do?
So what I can say is that for a long time, Savate was one of the kicking art that was recognized in the martial art world, and to the point where techniques were being taught in the militaries, even in the United States. So a friend found some treaties where there's actually the implementation of Savate kicks into military training. And what happened, one of the reasons that made Savate being included in the Jeet Kune Do curriculum is something that I got from Dan Innocento. He told me that Bruce Lee learned the low chassé, what we call chassé bas, which is a low side kick to right on top of the knee, like the shuffle kick that he uses so much at the beginning of Enter the Dragon, particularly. So Dan Innocento told me that Bruce Lee learned that from an 8mm black and white movie.
Okay, let me translate. Dice que el Savate durante un tiempo fue muy popular como un arte marcial conocido por sus patadas, que incluso se enseñaba en la milicia de Estados Unidos, que hay ciertos escritos donde se describen las patadas y se enseñaban en la milicia. En el caso de Bruce Lee, cuando agregó el chassé bas, que es la patada baja como un low kick y un shuffle también que usó del Savate, que según Dan Innocento le contó a él que Bruce Lee lo sacó de unas cintas de 8mm en blanco y negro. ¿Ok?
Yeah, and that is the kick that he describes in the Tower of Jeet Kune Do. Mm-hmm. Dan Innocento himself has done really a lot of work in studying different martial arts. In the 1960s, there was one martial artist called Bruce Techner who wrote a series of books on different martial arts from different places throughout the world. And one of those was Savate. And so the book that he wrote was, I think, Savate French Foot Fighting. And he had a school in Hollywood that Guru Dan Innocento went to study Savate.
Entonces nos dice que en 1960 una persona llamada Bruce Techner estudiaba muchas artes marciales y publicó libros sobre distintas artes marciales. Uno de ellos era sobre el Savate y tenía una escuela en Hollywood a la cual Dan Innocento asistía para aprender Savate.
Okay. Oh.
And from this time, I think Guru Dan has been making sure that it was implemented into the Jeet Kune Do curriculum. I think the other big push for Savate was when he met in the early 80s, 1980s, when he met a French Savate fighter, Daniel Duby, who used to be a Wing Chun instructor as well, and invited to come teach at his academy in Torrance.
Mm-hmm. Y bueno, desde entonces, desde que empezó a aprender Savate, Dani Inosanto se aseguró de que estuviera como parte del currículum de Jeet Kune Do. Y después en los 80 conoció a Daniel Duby, que también hacía Wing Chun, y lo invitó a hacer clase en su academia.
Around the same time, Fred Duggerberg in Chicago had, some interest in Savate as well, and he had people coming from France, and the French Federation started to send teams in Chicago, in Los Angeles, to try to promote Savate. And ever since that time, in those big martial arts academy, there's been, Savate being taught.
Y también en esa época, Fred Duggerberg en Chicago, en su academia, también tenía el interés de aprender Savate y traía mucha gente desde Francia. Entonces, desde esa época, tanto a Chicago como a Los Ángeles han estado viniendo profesores de Savate y ha habido un intercambio y ahí se ha entrenado el Savate.
Okay.
Okay. So, how in the beginnings of Savate, there was no or limited fist, the use of the fist. If what I heard, maybe I'm wrong. I think I heard it in that Fight Quest show that it was first from sailors, so they used the hands to grab the ropes and then they could kick, and then they took the kicks to the streets of the Marseille or from Paris. So they but then they include the fist. But in the beginning, it was just only kicking.
So my understanding is that Savate really evolved as like a street fighting form of opposition, and people would pick and start teaching techniques here and there. It was mostly kicking, but it was not just in the south of France. It was everywhere. So it was actually more popular in the north, in Paris, than it was in the south. But they were two different styles.
So where and I'm sorry to add a small question in the same question, but where do you think the kickings come from? Why it was kick based art?
It's hard to tell, but if you go back as far as the Greek civilization, Pancrase was, fighting with hands, but it was kicking as well. So why did it develop more in France than other places? I don't know. It's not very, very clear what the history is. But what's for sure is that in Paris, they were using empty hands techniques as well as the kicks.
Okay, please let me translate everything. Le pregunté porque él comentó anteriormente que se había incluido el boxeo inglés más o menos en 1800 o pasada la primera mitad de 1800. Entonces le pregunté si en un principio era solo patada y me dice que no, que siempre tuvo uso de manos, que se usaba tanto en Francia, o sea, en el sur de Francia como en el norte de Francia, y que siempre tuvo manos, pero que principalmente era un arte de patadas. Y le pregunté sobre lo mismo, por qué, de dónde viene la idea de las patadas, y dice que en realidad no sabe, que desde la civilización griega con el pancration había patadas y que por algún motivo en Francia el tema de las patadas se dio bien y es lo que se usaba en la defensa personal en las calles de Francia en los 1800 junto con ciertas técnicas de mano.
Sorry.
No, it's ¿vas tú, Alejandro? You want to add something else about it or
I do, yeah. So the one thing I would like to add is, even though like the window, what we know, the sport of Savate, boxe française, the kickboxing ring competition is only one part of what Savate used to be.
Yeah.
Because, go ahead, translate a bit.
Dice que es importante tener claro que lo que se conoce hoy en día como Savate, como la competición en el ring, es solo una parte de lo que realmente es el Savate. ¿Ok?
Claro, porque,
So, oh, go ahead, Alejandro. So it was a self-defense system. It had different ranges. So the striking, hands and feet, but also stick fighting, because people were working with cane, and it was developed as a means of self-defense, how to strike with the stick to defend themselves in the street.
Entonces dice que como sistema de defensa personal también estuvo asociado al uso de bastones, porque la gente tenía bastones. Entonces tenían distintas distancias, ya sea con los puños, con los pies o con bastones.
Esto se llama Lacan.
Lacan.
Lacan,
So the stick fighting system has two weapons. Lacan, thin and not too long, 1.20 m, and baton, much bigger, much longer, like staff.
Okay. Lacan, o sea, las armas que se usan son dos. Lacan, que es un bastón delgado alrededor de 1,20 m, y el batón, que es un palo largo y más grueso.
Lacan has their own competition.
Lacan tiene sus propias competiciones.
It's very technical and strict.
Que es muy técnico.
Very fast.
Very fast, yes, because it's light. And
porque es liviano.
Fast, but everything has to be pointed toward the target and loaded behind. Kind of what the kick used to be taught that way.
Okay, so en la... I go?
Yeah, sure.
El Lacan tiene que ser muy preciso, los golpes son todos apuntados a ciertos objetivos, y antiguamente solía ser así con los pies también.
Le bâton, the long one, no competition.
Okay.
You can use two hands at the end and strike long. You can put two hands together. You can mix with kicks. You can do anything you want. There's no competition. No, there are techniques, but no
sport. Que batón no tiene competición. Tiene muchas técnicas en que se combina, se puede usar a dos manos, tomar desde distintos lugares, combinarlo con las patadas, pero no es deporte, no tiene deporte.
Okay. Mi pregunta es que el Lacan y en este caso también el mismo Savate son sistemas se ven muy elegantes. ¿Qué nos podría decir por qué esta característica de los dos sistemas en este caso?
He said that both Lacan and Savate, they're very elegant systems. Why do you think it's like that?
To me, it's my interpretation. It's all those striking techniques come from fencing. The footwork, the guard, the balance, the hands balance, it all comes from fencing. If you see fencers and if you see savateurs or cane people, they were moving the same way. When you see people in the ring right now, it's completely different. But before, it was really, really straightforward, and everything was very elegant, just like it is in fencing.
Dice que en su opinión la elegancia viene porque son estilos derivados de la esgrima, de espada. Que hoy en día ya en el ring no se ve mucho esa elegancia original, pero que ambos, tanto Lacan como Savate, según él, vienen desde la esgrima de espada, y que la esgrima es un arte muy elegante.
Okay.
And I think the idea of Savate really stresses defense, so striking and not being touch, in which touching and not touching. So it's still this idea of coming quick, faking, boom, peaking, and then retreating and moving back. The thing that is different now is that Savate is using a lot things that did not exist at the time, but a lot of footwork and a lot of angles. So not just this straight line, but a lot of moving around and faking and combining hands and feet and just using like all the angles that we have. And it's not anymore like straightforward, straight and back striking out at all.
Yeah, that could be maybe because since it's rounds, you have more time to move around. If you're in street, you have to go in, go out quicker.
That's
right?
very possible.
Yeah. Okay, let me please translate. Dice que solía ser, aparte muy elegante, muy directo. Entrar y salir, golpear sin que te golpeen. Pero que hoy en día, por lo menos en el deporte Savate, se usan mucho más movimientos, más moverse alrededor, distintos tipos de desplazamientos que no son los que eran originales del arte.
Juan, aprovechando la pregunta para que después hagan la tuya, con respecto a la elegancia, dile, la gente puede pensar que como se ve elegante, no es potente. Yo sé que es potente, pero que él nos explique por qué esa parte.
He wants also to add about that part of the elegance or the art, like people might mistake that it's not powerful. What can you say about that?
It's difficult to understand how Savate can be efficient until you have been kicked by the shoes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Dice que es difícil explicarlo hasta que te llegue una patada con zapatos. Yeah.
The shoe is what makes all the difference and what makes those techniques work.
Yeah. Dice que el zapato es lo que hace la gran diferencia y hace que esas técnicas puedan funcionar.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you use shoes, which is very hard, but you put gloves on your hands. That's always have been like a contradiction in my mind. It's almost the gloves will protect more the people that's hitting, not the one like hit. I don't know.
That's true. However, its gloves were designed to protect the hands.
Yeah, that's my point. You protect the person that's hitting, not the guy that's receiving.
Harder and longer and more time with the gloves because the hands are protected.
Yeah. Le pregunté, sumándome a tu pregunta a raíz de eso, que era extraño que usaran guantes si bien te estaban pegando patadas con zapatos. Y dice que en realidad los guantes son para proteger las manos del que golpea, no del golpeado, para que puedan ser los rounds largos y no se dañen las manos.
Okay. Juan.
Yeah. You want to add something else about that, or I go with the next question?
Yes, I would like to add something else. Yeah. The fact that we can use the shoe, we use the toes a lot for the face and for the body, and it penetrates a lot easier. It's more difficult to defend from a small weapon than the big one. Yeah, because we can penetrate between the gone, like solar plexus, under the liver. You know, it's all those area under the gone. It's very easy to touch. Same thing inside the legs. So it offers more target areas, more precise targets.
Bueno, y sigue agregando a la misma pregunta tuya que el hecho de usar los zapatos hace que puedan golpear con la punta. Y al golpear con la punta le permite ser más efectivo en los objetivos a golpear, pero también como la punta es más pequeña que el pie completo, hace más fácil llegar a esos objetivos. Por lo tanto, el daño que hace es más fácil hacer daño porque pasa directo y penetra mucho más que si viniera el pie completo.
Ok. Te pregunta... dime.
Yeah. So in the approach and in the preparation, because we can do damage enough without putting necessarily a lot of force and not having to prepare and a lot of big shots all the time. So we mask those shots in combinations. And that's why I think Savate has evolved as really an art that develops those quick combination, kicks and punches combination from a fairly long range, because the legs have to be extended. And that gives this extra distance that other arts do not have.
Ok, entonces dice que las patadas se hacen con la pierna extendida, por lo tanto te dan un rango más largo que lo que te dan las otras artes, y que el hecho de que se haga más daño con menos esfuerzo permite hacer más combinaciones más rápidas, y que hoy en día también eso es parte del Savate, que tienen muchas más combinaciones en cantidad de golpes, porque no necesitan meter golpes tan potentes y tan desgastadores, sino que pueden enfocarse en combinaciones porque el daño se hace igual por el zapato. Yeah.